country, and then some part of the country and some citizens are equally saying that no, we are not at that particular point yet.
I think, Kwame, Ghana is united now more than it has ever been. I commend the former president for handing over the olive branch, and the current president as well, because as commander-in-chief of the armed forces, you can do nothing better than making sure that no Ghanaian is left behind and no Ghanaian is left vulnerable as this pervasive virus devastates most parts of the world today. So everybody needs commendation. The media, the market women who were quite instrumental in the disinfection or fumigation exercise that took place. But Kwame, later someone shared some statistics from the GSS, Ghana Statistical Service, about how many rats and mice were killed as a result of the fumigation exercise. Even though it came across as a very light, response from the public, it goes to say that we are mixing two things together. What we eat is a security issue. Food security and how wholesome what we take is also a national security issue. But the markets are dirty. So dirty, very filthy.
Okay, but let me quickly remind my viewers, the public interest, a segment, basically we do English more. And see, you better try say I'll mix it up now. I feel also I'll share and what you say just in case you don't know why your country kakra near Cambro for kakra. But this particular segment is strictly in English, and then we will try say you bet me adani than your kakra somehow. Now also what me at you say, but you can go on.
Yeah, so Kwame, exactly what I'm talking about. The food you took this morning or you will take soon, because maybe you've not taken breakfast yet. So, look, I always say when we put partisanship aside, there are a lot of things we can do for the long-term benefit of this country. The former government had a very nice sanitation program in place for marketplaces. In Africa, we have we have open markets. So they designated one Saturday in the course of the month that there should be some cleanup.
But that was heavily criticized because the views were that you do not need a particular day to clean your environment.
Since you didn't designate a day, all other days you have in the week, do you clean? Did you see sanitation in what we saw as a result of the fumigation of or disinfection exercise? Kwame, I think people should be nationalistic in their outlook and the way they view development in this country. So if there is any reason to bring back the National Sanitation Day, then this is. If this isn't, I don't know what is. So it is important that where we eat, where we get our food, raw, food recipe from, should be kept clean.
Some Ghanaians have equally suggested that in the president's next address to the nation, he should make it mandatory that at this point, the most important thing for us to do is to keep hygiene. And so it is mandated on every Ghanaian to clean their environment and let the people come out. Even in the midst of we trying to deal with the disease, it should be an order, just as he declared a national day for prayer and fasting. He should be able to declare a particular day where all Ghanaians will walk on the street and go and clean because of this particular disease.
You remember the days of the town council when we were young in the 90s. Every morning your mother would make sure she would keep the place spick and span, because she knew that if she didn't do it, there would be repercussions or consequences for that. But we have a liberal democracy and people decide what to do. That is why I think in the midst of this, Kwame, let's try our best to adopt socialist ideas that will see us respond to issues as a collective. And if you say there should be a day, one day designated, it's going to be a 9-day wonder. And we have an issue with sanitation in Ghana. When you desilt the gutter, the heap of sand is left close to the gutter. So the rains would just, and the banks of various rivers like Odona, then the rains will wash the dirt back into the gutter. And so what policies do we have? I remember the first day I got to Dallas International Airport and I got into Washington, D.C. I called my American friend later and told him when I came back, I said, D.C. is clean. He said that first day, U.S. capital wasn't like that. It was dirty. But they took a deliberate policy as a country to make sure that Washington, look, any part of Washington DC you go to, you can spread a mat and sleep because of how clean it is. And then we keep saying, the former government said, the former mayor, and the mayor under the former government was adjudged one of the best mayors on the continent. This government came and said it would make Accra the cleanest city on the continent. Look, Corona, the fight against the spread of Corona is one that boils down to basic hygiene and sanitation. That is why time and again they say when you wash your hands often, you are able to protect yourself and provide yourself some immunity against this virus. So sanitation is a national security issue.
Okay.
That is why we have a whole ministry in charge of that. And I believe the disinfection exercise has shown us the cracks there are within our sanitation regime, especially in our open markets. And it's important, now that His Excellency has been able to rally the market queens, it's important that going forward, they bring back the national sanitation day once a week, once a month, and then enforce it so that we'll keep our marketplaces clean.
Was that really effective as per the initiative of the former government? Was it really effective? Did we see the impact of the National Sanitation Day? Because at some point it became a fanfare where people would gather to play brass band, to dance, and to do a whole lot of things. It became some sort of a platform for political rallies and then political talks. Was it necessarily effective? And what was the impact on our societies and then our economy in general?
In lieu of the Sanitation Day that has been scrapped, what has been put in place? And half a loaf, Kwame.
You have the ministry distributing, how do you call it, dustbins on all our streets.
I didn't see bins along your road. The alleyway that leads to class doesn't have such bins. So, Kwame, so why should we be endangered in a capital that is seen as the gateway to West Africa? So it is important that as a nation, we take sanitation serious and people continue to build on waterway. Real estate is a national security issue as well. People are building with reckless abandon. No, emergency exits, no, disability-friendly, considerations as part of buildings we do. So national security issues go beyond guns and bullets, just as you've indicated.
With all of this, we know the very issues that you have touched on this morning. How do we rally ourselves together to be able to unite to fight this particular situation? Because we know that is what we find ourselves. The situation is very clear, and then it's staring in our faces. How do we come and then deal with the situations on the ground?
You can look at the ideal situation and the reality we have on the ground, Kwame. The ideal situation would be that, okay, chiefs are coming around, religious people, the clergy are coming around, politicians seem to be coming around on the surface. But beneath that show of solidarity, there's a lot of partisanship. Because some argue that when Ebola struck, some people did not bid government well at that time. And it's just like your neighbor's wife getting pregnant. If while she was pregnant, you were praying for her to have a miscarriage, when your own wife gets pregnant, would you expect your neighbor to wish her a safe delivery? No. Some see this response as a test case for this government. If the response goes on well, it will be a feather in the cap of the government. If it doesn't, it will go against it on December 7th. So there's a little political tinge to the rallying, we need to do.
You're talking about. Us not to politicize the issues. We should probably consider this particular situation from a nationalistic perspective, where people can be so nationalistic and then have that spirit of the country at their heart first, and then we can be able to deal with a particular situation.
Yes,
we do not want the divisive NDC and NPP in this particular situation. So on the surface, we see some sort of unity, as you claim. Now, how do we come together beneath the things that we don't see, but we see what is on the surface? Even with that, how do we bring ourselves together? How do we rally the leaders together? How do we rally the followers together to be able to deal with the situations? Because we know that today we've recorded some cases within our communities. So if we are getting community spread or community cases, then definitely the hygienic situation of our communities will equally come into play. How do we deal with the situation?
First of
all, at the point where they are calling for
lockdowns? Kwame, there should be transparency. Some think the figures are being massaged. And some think there are more infections of corona than have been made public.
Yes, but we are told that we should expect more cases in the coming days.
Yeah, so number one is when you sell your sickness that you will get a cure. We have that balance in our local languages. So number one, Ghana should be as transparent as possible. You can't take away the fact that those on the other side of the political aisle will seek accountability. Governance is all about accountability. So the $100 million designated, how much of that has trickled in? How are we disbursing? Even with this disinfection exercise that took place on Monday, people are asking how much went into it. Accountability is a hallmark of democracy.
And the funny thing that I saw on social media, as Rwanda was using drones and then huge vehicles that was spraying, we were using manpower in doing our fumigation exercise. Was that really something that we needed to complain about?
Kwame, Paul Kagame in Rwanda is enjoying more national solidarity than Ghanaian presidents do. He is in his 21st year and term. His third term will take him to 21 years in power. And he has pretty much control over what happens in the country. So he can stamp his authority and say, this is how much we are spending on sanitation, on hygiene, on health. But in Ghana, every single policy is characterized by unsavory partisanship. So it makes governance much more difficult in Ghana than what Paul Kagame is enjoying. But I think it's a good start.
You don't mean to say that there are no opposition political parties in Rwanda. There are.
Look at when you watch the reviews, when you watch the space in Rwanda, you realize that there's very little, partisan resistance to what Paul Kagame wants to do. And that is the kind of psyche we need to have on this part of the world. In this part of the world, you saw Gaddafi. Gaddafi didn't have any stiff opposition. After 42 years in power,
but
you saw the quality of life in those
to good leadership. Because if at the end of the day they were not performing, I do not think that you wouldn't have gotten someone who will rise among the populace to say that, okay, per your performances, we feel that you are not doing the best for us. And so give way for others to as well come.
Because of lack of longevity, the odds are up against our leaders. Ghana and Nigeria have had some of the most elections and transitions of power. It is our people who cross the Mediterranean and die in the process. It is our people who die of thirst, our youth, who die of thirst trying to cross the Sahara Desert to go to Libya, which was seen as a dictatorship. You see the irony. And so I believe you can be good as a leader. You could have all the qualities and credentials. The system has to prop you up. And in Ghana, there is a deficit of national solidarity and consensus building in achieving that. So you ask the question, how do we rally everybody? Be each other's keeper. Be your neighbor's keeper. Let's be concerned about each other. The children are now out. And I'm told that even though schools have been closed, sports betting centers are operational. We are not serious as a country.
People are not there. People are not going there.
No, people are patronizing. Do your own research. People are patronizing.
People are not there because it's like saying this based on the fact that
it's like saying don't go to school, but go to the sports.
Yes, all the major world.
Do you know what people are betting on?
What are people betting on?
Kwame, I tell you, betting is a huge psychological and national security threat. Do you know what they are betting on now? Since the La Liga is on hold, the EPL is on hold, UEFA Champions League is on hold, people are betting on weather forecast. That is how addictive this thing can get.
How can I believe that particular
No, I'll let you know. Yes. I'll give you the evidence. People are betting as to whether tomorrow it will rain or it won't rain. Instead of channeling the energies of the youth into industry and hard work, you're talking about rallying the nation around a common cause like sanitation. So Ghana should be up against some of these ills in society that will not help our long-term national security and development.
So wrapping it up,
so it is important that we become each other's keeper.
Wrapping it up, what are we supposed to do? Especially the Ghana Medical Association has added its voice to the call for a total lockdown. In just 1 minute, what the president and then those in power are supposed to do to be able to make sure that
a lockdown is not a good idea, Kwame. A lockdown is not a good idea. If Wuhan tried it, and northern Italy, and parts of Spain and New York City are trying it, the question is, what percentage of these areas have all the conveniences of life at home? We live in a country where a good percentage of people have to go out before they even pee, not to talk of going to the lavatory. People go to KVIPs. So what lockdown will you have when you don't have toilet facilities at home?
People use the public bathhouse, washrooms.
People even bath outside, Kwame. So this is how critical our situation is. And if care is not taken, and this thing is imposed in His Excellency's next address to the nation, starvation will kill more people than COVID-19 would have.
Okay.
So I think, number one, a lockdown is not a good idea. Number two, Kwame, the Electoral Commission has buckled to pressure. I don't think they are doing this willingly. They are doing this because of the sheer, magnitude of pressure on them. And it means that nobody has there's no end in sight to COVID-19. Okay. So if COVID-19 ends in June, will you still compile a new register?
But it has been suspended by the statement they put out yesterday.
Indefinitely.
Yes.
Indefinitely.
And there is no new date.
And then there is no concern. It's just like saying, I don't trust the process. Oh, the process is bad. We need to do a little tweak. Oh, now because of a health crisis, we can't do the tweak. Will we go into an election without a register that has integrity? We want to do that. So it is important that in the midst of this crisis, and Kwame, this is what I want to raise the attention of the nation to. We have a huge national exercise ahead of us. COVID-19 is terrible. Let's tackle it, but let's not take our feet off the paddle.
Okay.
Of the other things that are important to our constitution as a country.
All right,
like
Eva, thank you very much. Our time is exhausted, and then I hope to see you on Tuesday if the country by then is not under a lockdown. So, so let's hope and pray that it does not get to that particular point or situation. So it's a pleasure coming up. This is the public interest, and then it comes your way every Tuesday and Thursday. We get to discuss the very issues from a non-partisan point of view, and then we get to link it to the situation